Hey, 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 guess what? It is Wednesday. And I can tell you this, it does not feel like a Wednesday to me, mainly because I took off Monday for Martin Luther King Day, right? So I'm off for Dr. King Day, and now we have Tuesday and Wednesday. So I feel like I'm on a Tuesday. So I'm really not ready to talk about this book, Think and Grow Rich. I have everything, all my notes written down. Excuse me. Excuse me. I have my notes written down, but I just don't have the energy to do it, especially because it was a long chapter. And yeah, we'll talk about that. I'll do that video for you shortly. Not tonight, though. Tonight, I am just getting in. I went to the library. We had a speaker at the library here in Cleveland at the Cuyahoga County Library. And tonight, I think it was just 2 weeks ago that I went to see Gene Sincero. And tonight we have Claudia Rankin or Rankine. I don't know how Rankine. I'm not sure. Rankin. Rankine. I don't know. They said her name, so I should know it by now. But her book is called Citizen, an American Lyric. And I made sure I got the book ahead of time so that I could get it signed by her. But it was a really nice conversation about race. And one of the things that I do know is that when people are not of color, they don't understand what it means to be a black person, a brown person, something that's non white. And so she talked about whiteness. So they have an institute called Race Imaginary Institute, maybe something like that. And they talk about whiteness, right? And so, not necessarily about white people, but whiteness in the sense of the privilege that people have as being white, but not necessarily understanding that it's a privilege that only they have because it's what they've known all along. And so it was very interesting hearing her talk about that, especially because she's married to a white man. And so you have this brown lady who's married to a white man, and she talked about how they were going to places and they ended up, her husband walking in the place that they shouldn't have gone. And so they let him in. And when she tried to come in, they were like, wait a minute, like, who are you? And she's like, well, I'm here with my husband. And then they're like, oh, I don't think he belongs here. Before they had no problem with just letting him in. But this is just part of it, right? Being a white person, you get opportunities just because you're a white person. And you may not understand that or recognize that for yourself, but it does happen. And one of the other things that she talked about, which resonated with me because it was something that I've been talking about all day, and that was Serena Williams playing yesterday. I don't know how many of you have watched the Australian Open and seen her lose in the quarterfinals. So, just in case you didn't, I'll give you a recap. She lost the first set, she won the second set. So now we're in the third set and she has the momentum. So she is 5-1 up in the third set, 40 love. So all it takes is 1 point for her to win, and she's on serve, right? So it takes 1 point for her to win. And when she hit the ball, it was an ace. But they called a foot foul. So that changed everything. Everything. Besides the fact that it was a foot foul, the next play, when she did the second serve and they go on to play, she twists her ankle. So now she's, not to say, I'm not even negating the foot foul because it was a foot foul, right? They showed it. But they hadn't been calling foot fouls the entire match. But on this particular one, they call it after she had aced and pretty much won the game, right? And so from that point on, she went to the next, play the next one. She hurt her ankle and started double faulting, and it just went downhill. Needless to say, she lost from being up 5-1, 40 love, and losing 7-5. Yep. And the first thing I thought about is like, this is because she's black. And I hate that I have to have that thought, but I've lived this too many times myself to know that it's not just because it was a foot foul. It's not. Everything that happens, I mean, we all know that Serena is the most tested player in the entire tennis association because of her greatness. We all know that. But what people don't get, and I sat there and listened to the commentary afterwards, Chris Everett talking about, I can't believe this happened. How did she do this? And she did lose concentration. Now, mind you, she was hurt. It was obvious because she couldn't push off the one leg and she just kept double faulting. But you can tell her mind went somewhere else. And it's where a lot of our minds go when these types of things happen to us, only because we're black people. One thing that people don't get, and I know if you're looking at this, that you probably are not one of these people who buy into it. But I do know that I have friends who buy into a lot of things that the media says that's not necessarily truth, but it's how they want it to be perceived as. And black women are invisible, we are devalued, and all of that, all of the burden that she had to carry, the gravity of it all, caused her to lose the game. And I sat there thinking about all the struggles that I had. When I grew up in the inner city of Cleveland. So I didn't really have, I mean, most schools that I went to were predominantly black schools. My first friend happened to be white. But I wasn't even, we didn't even know white, black. But that's one of the things that I love about what Claudia Rankine says, because I'm going to read this. And this comes from their website for the Racial. It's Racial Imaginary Institute. That's what it's called. But it says, our name, Racial Imaginary, is meant to capture the enduring truth of race. It is an invented concept that nevertheless operates with extraordinary force in our daily lives, limiting our movements and imaginations. It is an invented concept that nevertheless operates with extraordinary force. I was thinking about that because, I look at people as people. The only thing that differentiates us is skin. But yet, I have to always be aware that my skin is brown, that I'm a black person. It's just how it is. And it's unfortunate. And one of the things that I thought about after listening to her, because she talked about a play that she had written, and it was a conversation between a black woman and a white man. And it was like, you can't leave this room. We're going to have this conversation. And as uncomfortable as it was, they had it. And that is what the play was about. And even the people who were there, they couldn't leave, because if you leave, I can see you. Because the way she said she had it set up, the stage was in the middle, people were there, the lights were on, they acting it out on stage, and you can see what the audience is think. You can't tell what they're thinking, but you can see their face. You can see if they get up and leave. You can see all of that. So it forces people to feel that they need to stay. And the thing that I do know is that we do not like to have this conversation. And it's one that needs to be had, because race, this was invented, right? And the funny thing about it, we had this conversation at the library for a good hour, 15 minutes, right? I go up, get my book signed, and she asked me if I was a writer. And I was like, yes, I am. And I was like, can I give you my book? Because I happen to have my book with me. Because most of the times I try not to travel without it. Sometimes you can find me without it. But I had it in my backpack. So I went to sign the book for her. So I'm sitting in a chair. And these are individual chairs, right, that they just have lined up in the auditorium. And a guy sees someone that he wants to go speak to. So he has to cross the row behind me. So what does he do? he walks across, and as he gets to me, he bumps my chair